Hi, nobodies. So today was a good day. I know last night I had a little rant, a little bit of tears. Not every day is completely sunny, um, but I'm good now. I was good by the end of that video because I talked about it. So today I was sharing a great little article from Psychology News about quiet borderlines. Because, see, a friend was wanting to know what is a personality disorder? Is that like having multiple personalities? And I was like, no, we're fully aware of the shit we do. We don't lose time unless something really, really bad happens. I've lost time a couple of times. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. But every time that I did, something major was happening. So, anyway, um, I was talking to my friend and I was like, okay, well, I'll share some information with him. Now, if you Google borderline personality disorder, it's scary. I have the disorder and I would be scared to death looking at what it says, because they tend to tell you like the high end of the spectrum, like severe extreme mood swings, and just various things. And some people do have those. I mean, everybody's different though. They'll say, oh, the condition varies on which symptoms you have and the severity of the symptoms, blah blah blah. But when I look at the symptoms, I'm like, fuck, this just screams train wreck. It's scary. um so I can see people getting like, when they find out that they've got it, they're like, whoa. Here's the thing, folks. You only get worse by more trauma being added. So if your doc tells you you've got borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder or schizoaffective disorder or histrionic disorder, blah blah blah, you're no different today than you were yesterday. Okay? You've had it. It's not something that just pops up like cancer. You've had it. So it's not a death sentence. But it is not easy. There is no magic pill to help somebody with a personality disorder. That is a therapy based thing. Now, they can give you drugs to combat underlying conditions that can coexist, like depression, anxiety, which a lot of people who have anxiety also have a history of migraines. So I'm thinking there's some kind of connection there. And the borderline personality can cause depression and anxiety. So it's important to know whether you need chemical help or not. I mean, docs are really quick to prescribe those antidepressants, and I would say that if you do okay, I would suggest doing therapy only in the beginning, because some people don't need those things. Because if your depression and anxiety is caused by borderline personality disorder, those get better as your condition gets better. So medication will help, but if you don't need it, there's no reason to take it. Because, I mean, these drugs, they're considered safe, but opioids were considered non-addictive. How much faith do you have in them? Do you want to be locked into taking a medication for the rest of your life if you don't have to? I know I have to. I know where I was at and before I started my antidepressant, and that was not BPD based. That was that was genetic, and that totally has to have medication. Um, so anyway, back to the original story before I got off track, which happens a lot with me if you ain't noticed, all of you who don't watch me. So I I was like, shit, I can't share this, because I've got this giant fear of rejection, you know. So so sharing a lot of things is hard for me because it's like, well, what if they don't like that? Because like you learn throughout life, like, okay, I can't say that. I can't say that. I can't say that, and you've got like all these little rules because this made that person leave. This made that, so you worry about stuff. And then thinking objectively, you're like, well, if this person is quote unquote sane, and I say quote unquote because none of us are sane. Not really. You may not have a chemical imbalance, but none of us are sane. Um, so, looking at when you Google borderline personality disorder, looking at it from a person who's not mental, who's fairly level headed, that's scary. That's like, whoa, I ain't even in, I didn't sign up for the rodeo. That's a lot of issues, girl. You know, it's a scary thing to share that with somebody. And it's because there's such a stigma on it. Even people with just bipolar or just depression or just anxiety get stigmatized as, oh, you're crazy. And it's like, but it doesn't matter as long as you're taking care of it. I mean, you can have these conditions and be normal, as normal as anybody else. It's all about whether you work towards that. And it's important for people to know about your illness. This is something that could be first date conversation, in my opinion. I mean, you don't have to go into like great detail about your specific issues, but having the conversation of, I'm bipolar, I've got borderline personality disorder, those are important, because if that person cares, they're going to find out, okay, what do I not do with this person? Like my fear of rejection, you got to be careful about how you approach things. But if you ask me, well, hey, how do you handle this? What do I do when you do that? I'll say, well, okay, this is what you do. You leave me the fuck alone. When I go off into another room to cry, you leave me the fuck alone. You can ask, are you okay? Maybe I'll say no and I'll tell you what's wrong. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just going to go work on it myself. And when you see me next, I'll be fine. I mean, but to be in my face, it's like, hey, don't. I know these things about myself. And I think most mentally ill people know what they want when they act a certain way. And I think that they know what their particular areas that they need to improve on are. So I was looking at stuff and I was just like, wow, I'm going to have to do a lot of annotations about what I do. Because I'm like, man, I'm not going down like this, with that. And then I said, well, fuck it. I know I'm a quiet borderline. And so I looked up quiet borderline, like for the millionth time in my life. And I scrolled down, I was like, okay, I've read this one. This one's depressing. This one's depressing. This one's depressing. Because I mean, on a day-to-day basis, for the most part, I feel like I'm okay. I'm not ashamed of my disorder. I'm not ashamed to say I've got borderline personality disorder. But when I look at something written about it, I start to go, man, I'm fucked up. I am just such a man, I am so fucked up. You know, it makes me feel really bad because I'm like, well, I don't do all of this, but I do something similar. You know, it's like, so it's depressing. And sometimes, you know, they'll say depressing things like, these people should not be in relationships, you know, and it's like, but everybody deserves to be loved, you know. Maybe if the right people are treating the patient and helping the family members, then maybe it's not so bad. You know, maybe they've got a chance at happiness. I mean, come on. Don't be so glum and be like, oh, don't date these people. They're killers in waiting. You know, it's like, I'm not going to snap and kill somebody. I'm harmless. And, you know, but I did find an article that I was okay with. It's kind of like when you read about your sign, you know, you go, well, that's not me. I'm not sharing that on Facebook. I'm not pinning that to Pinterest because that doesn't describe me. Oh, but this one does. You know, and so, you know, there's a lot of things with quiet borderlines, but what got me about this particular article was when it talked about their childhood. You know, this childhood of being told you can only show these emotions, um, not the others, because no one would like you if they knew the real you. And I was like, holy shit, that was my childhood. That was my home. And learning to toe the line and conform was part of my upbringing. You know, that if you don't do what people want you to, if you don't do things just the way that they want, you're gonna get rejected. There's gonna be, you know, you need to be a good little soldier. And, you know, so I was raised to conform and be what I think everybody wants. You know, so if they say, ooh, I'm a bit displeased about this aspect of you, okay, we're going to cut that out. You know, and before you know it, there's nothing left of you, really. And the article said that, you know, after so long of doing this people pleasing, you know, trying to avoid disappointment, fights, everything, it all starts to fester. And that's what happened to me. It festered to the point of my anxiety. And I got an apology. And I was like, you didn't force me to be here. You didn't force me to repress stuff. You didn't force any of that. That was, you know, it's my parents' fault. and it's partially my fault too, because it took me so long to learn that I was doing that. I mean, I've been doing this my whole life. I am almost 42. So, you know, I'm like, I don't want apologies. You know, I mean, it's like, you don't have to apologize. Nobody was tying me up. Nobody tied me up and said, hey, you have to live this way. No, I was programmed, you know, and I didn't even realize it, that I was programmed and that my programming was making me sick. And it's when you look up the disorder, it is scary. And if anybody's watching this that has just gotten that diagnosis or has had it for a while and has seen no progress in therapy, you've got to do the work. You have to dig into yourself, because the therapist isn't going to dig. The therapist is going to poke a little at you, you know, see what makes you uncomfortable. But if you decide, like, hey, you know, I'm not going to talk about that, you know, one of my big issues is that I've got, it starts with an A, and I knew the word when I started this video, but now I don't. But it's basically the inability to articulate an emotion. And not only that, I have trouble recognizing them a lot. Now, I mean, there are emotions that I do know. You know, I know that I feel these things. Sadness, I know that one real well. Happy, to a degree, I know that one. I don't think I ever feel it to the degree that, like, I would cry over happiness. But I do know joy and happiness, as far as, you know, I can say, okay, I feel happy, you know. But see, mad, the way that I experience mad and love is like when you've had dental work done and they put the Novocaine in and it starts to wear off, and you go and run your finger along, like, say your jaw, say you had a nerve block, and you run your finger across that skin. You feel it, but you don't feel it. Like, you know, your finger is running across your skin, and you feel something, but it's not like when the area is not dead. So that's how I feel anger a lot of times. Like, I can name it, I can say I'm mad, but it doesn't come out as I'm mad, you know, like, it doesn't visibly, like, it won't have me shaking or anything, because I don't really feel it. I do occasionally. It does break through. It has at times busted through. I mean, there's only so many times I can be poked before, you know, I will retaliate. And love's a little different. I can feel it, and I know, like, the depth of it, but I don't know, I can't describe it. I cannot articulate that feeling, but I feel it in different ways. I don't think it's like, I don't know. I can't picture, like, gasping, you know, going, oh my God, you know, like, I just, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, you know, like, take my breath away, you know. It's kind of like, well, I don't know that one, you know. I don't feel that one, you know, but I do feel love. Like, I recognize it, and I recognize the kind that it is. Like, I look at friend, family. Like, I actually, those feel different. Friend, family, mate. Those feel different, and love definitely feels different than lust to me. Because lust actually, lust is a whole body feeling, which is actually pretty fun. But love doesn't hit everything. It's more of like a lightness in my chest or something. It's hard to explain because, like I said, I have that A word thing. Anyway, I've talked about that enough. So, if you want to know more about the disorder, do a quick Google search. I would suggest, like, reading something that's actually written by a doctor, And don't and remember that everything's on a spectrum, like IQ. You know, it's like an IQ. So when you say, oh, mood swings, well, some people have an IQ under 65. Some people have an IQ over 110. So your mood swings can be kind of like the difference between being dumb and smart. You know, uh, it may be very noticeable, or in my case, I don't even really notice mood swings. Like, I don't. It's all trigger based, and I don't really notice the flip. But it happens. I mean, if I'm crying, show me puppies or kittens, and I'm good. So that's it for me tonight. Long, drawn out thing. Uh, as always, long winded. I had a great day. Tomorrow's going to be a great day, even if it's raining and cold. I'm going to find my sunshine. It lives in me, and it lives in you too. All you have to do is just find it. Have a good night.